Well, it's time now for Perspective. A man widely accused of legitimising white supremacists has now vacated the White House, and a black woman is now the country's vice president. But anti-racism activists' fight for true equality is far from over, with unconscious bias and systemic racism still presenting black people with endless hurdles on the path to parity. So whose job is it to dismantle those hurdles? My guest today is Dr Shola Mos-Shogbamimu, a lawyer, activist and also author of This Is Why I Resist, published just a few days ago. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us here on France 24 today. Tell me, what was the driving force behind your desire to write your book?
My driving force is always to end racial inequality and racial injustice. This is something that has not, like you just pointed out, hasn't gone away. And it exists every single day, overtly and covertly. And what we saw last year with 2020, not just the global Black Lives Matter protests, but the impact of the coronavirus pandemic in highlighting long-standing structural inequalities that exacerbated the exposure of people from the Black and ethnic minorities to the virus. It says that it is time for real action to eradicate the impact of white supremacy. So last year, all the elements worked together, because this book has been like a couple of years in the making within me. And last year I got down to, sit down and write about it, because the conversations we have about race, racism and race inclusion isn't going anywhere, and it's not been going anywhere fast. It's like a constant battle if you think about it. And there's still people who deny that systemic racism is an issue. Why is that? So this book tackles those really hard conversations. It draws from the conversations online, on social media, in the mainstream headlines. It deconstructs what we are saying. And basically, what it does is to draw out what the understanding of racism is and how it manifests in the understanding of white people.
So in your opinion, what are the most pernicious forms of systemic racism around in the world today?
So, let's take politics as an example. White identity politics is at the center of how the processes, the laws that are meant to protect all of us actually suffocate some of us. This irrational fear of racial diversity, it drives systemic racism in politics. That's one example. Then you think about the everyday examples we see. I was just saying before that I was 2 years old when I realized that the plaster I use can come in different colors, and it should come in different colors. It's not just meant to be pink and beige. It's just the way that white supremacy has centered whiteness in everything that we do. And that is part of the challenge and difficulty in erasing racial inequality and racial injustice. This is what we need to keep working at. The language we use, the rhetoric that we either support or we allow to slide by. It is not acceptable. So what this book does is it blows the lid off indefensible rhetoric on race, racism, and race inclusion. And by drawing from all these ongoing conversations, and as well as a point of reference to historical fact and present-day data, it's a no-holds-bar, speaking truth to power on the complex, intersecting nature of racism. It's saying to you and I that we have a role to play. It's saying to our government we have a role to play, and this is how we do it.
Now, at the height of the Black Lives Matter protests around the world last year, there was a lot of discussion of a term, performative allyship, that's what you call it, a discussion about the ethics of non-black people being supportive of black people by, for example, posting a black square on Instagram or Facebook, saying the right things at the right time, but not necessarily having the actions to back that up. What's your stance on performative allyship, as you call it?
Don't do it. Performative allyship is dangerous as far as I'm concerned. It's fake allyship. It's people who are just going with the flow of a trending hashtag and who cause an equal measure of danger to the cause. Because think about it. If I pretend to be an ally and go, oh yeah, I support you, and then when you actually need my voice, I'm nowhere to be found, It means that I'm a problem, not a solution. And within, what we saw last year with the black squares, the reality is that impact, when it comes to things like the ethos of the Black Lives Matter, impact matters. You need to show the receipts of how you are actually making change and how you're supporting change, whether it's in your school, on the high street, in your family dining room, in every sphere of influence that you have. Because people have to understand that the ethos of the Black Lives Matter is that it is not a hotel you can check in and check out of, because we are in it 365 days, 24/7. So if you think that this is something, well, I'm feeling quite tired now, I've done my bit, I'm just going to step away, then don't even be part of the cause, because you're not part of the cause. You're a problem. So performative allyship is a problem. And what it actually does is to center white supremacy, when that's exactly what we're trying to eradicate.
Now, we know about greenwashing, a practice whereby companies, again, say and do the right thing to appear environmentally friendly while actually not being particularly supportive of ecological policies behind the scenes. It's linked to this idea of woke washing by companies as well in the wake of Black Lives Matter protests. What do you do to dismantle the woke washing that we do see so often in the public sphere?
You call it out. That's what you have to do. And look, the reality, again, I say, is impact and receipts. When somebody says, I support a cause, how do they demonstrate that support? So, for instance, with corporations, now some corporations got it wrong, visibly got it wrong, publicly got it wrong, like the NFL as an example. And now they appear, like last year, to have done an about turn. And they're like, well, you know what, we now support this cause. All right, that's okay. But show us the receipts. Show us how your policies have changed. Show us how you're now trying to redress the wrongs that were done. Show us what environment you are now creating in your organizations to be more supportive to Black and ethnic minorities. How are you doing that? And how is it resulting in positive outcomes? Because I'm not into equal opportunities. If equal opportunities doesn't result in equal outcomes, it makes no sense to me. So there has to be equal outcomes. There has to be positive outcomes coming out of this this allyship. So that's what I would say about organizations. Where their actions don't match their words, call them out.
Now, we are a week into the Biden administration in the US. How much faith do you have that this change of leadership is going to translate to real change on the ground for Black people?
So let me put it this way. I think it's brilliant that Biden and Harris have been voted in. And they've removed that white supremacist in chief, Donald Trump, no doubt. But this doesn't mean racism is going to end today. But what we are seeing from the United States are clear intentions, the political will that the Biden-Harris administration has. And we saw that just yesterday with the executive orders that have been signed off to address racial equity and to also, stamp out systemic racism. That is a start. Now, all of that has to now feed into the mindset of systemic racism. And hopefully that starts to work out. But it does start with the political will from the government and individuals willing to change.
I'm so sorry. We've come to the end of our time together. Dr Shola Mos-Shogbamimu, lawyer, activist, and also author of This Is Why I Resist. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24 today.
Thank you.